What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to The Drop, which is a series right here on my channel every single Monday where I choose the top video game releases for that particular week, and I give you some more information on it, give you my opinion on it, and let you guys know what's going on in the world of video games. And today, we're going to be talking about a pretty awesome VR title that I've personally been looking forward to seeing, at least seeing how the critics receive it. Then we have a pretty big fighting franchise getting the third season of DLC. We have a notoriously bad game going to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It's a very interesting week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So kicking things off, we have a game called Adr1ft, and that is spelled Adr1ft. I'm not really sure what the significance of that title is, but I'm sure that it will be revealed within the story itself. Now, this is a title that I have heard about since the beginning of the VR craze. Whenever people started going really crazy for it, I remember this being one of the games that I first saw being showed off, and pretty much the idea behind the game is that you are an astronaut and your ship has been destroyed, killing everyone on board except for you, and there is no possible way that you could make it back to Earth. You are literally floating adrift in space. And of course, your suit is also leaking oxygen just to add to the stress of the situation, so you pretty much have to scavenge the remnants of the ship and try and find little pockets of oxygen to keep you alive, at least alive long enough to figure out what exactly happened that made the ship explode, which to me sounds like a pretty awesome experience to have in virtual reality. Now, that being said, this is actually being called a first-person experience, meaning that this is pretty much just one of those games that you're along for the ride. There is no real action, there are no aliens or anything in space. You're pretty much just floating along trying to figure out what happened, which definitely lends itself to VR. I feel like outside of virtual reality, if this game was just like on that flat screen behind me and I was just playing it, it wouldn't have quite the same kind of appeal as it does in the VR headset. Now, that VR headset is going to have to be an Oculus Rift if you did want to end up playing this game, because at the moment there are no plans to bring the game to PlayStation VR or HTC Vive. It seems like at the moment this one is an Oculus exclusive, but it would be awesome to see that change somewhere along its release. Next up, we have Killer Instinct Season 3, and this one gets a little bit complex whenever we get further into it, but pretty much Killer Instinct on the Xbox One was a reboot of a classic fighting games franchise that was released right at the beginning of the Xbox One's life cycle, and at the beginning it failed miserably because it was following a free-to-play model. There simply wasn't much game there, and the fans of the franchise that had been around for a long time felt like they got gypped out of a proper reboot, so over time they kind of changed their model. The game is technically still free-to-play, but it is better to just dish out maybe 20 or 30 bucks and buy the DLC, which is where Killer Instinct Season 3 comes in. So as you can imagine, this is the third round of DLC for the game, and it does have some pretty significant characters in it. Now, this is going to be pretty cool because they do have two guest fighters featured in Killer Instinct Season 3, including Arbiter from Halo and Rash from Battletoads, alongside a couple of classic characters that you would expect to find in Killer Instinct. So the roster is definitely growing, and it's adding a couple of awesome characters to the mix, if you ask me. So now the pricing for this does get a little bit complex depending on what you want. First off, you could get the double combo, which includes all 17 Killer Instinct characters from Seasons 1 and 2 for $29.99 on both the Xbox One and Windows 10. If you did want to go ahead and upgrade to the other characters leaving out Season 3, you could go ahead and do that, and it gets a couple of bucks saved on your end. Now, if you did want to get the Season 3 characters that we've been talking about, you could get the Combo Breaker for $19.99 on both the Xbox One and Windows 10. Now, this includes all 8 new fighters, including Rash, Arbiter, Kimwoo, and Tusk, which is a pretty good value for those that have already kept up with all the DLC that has come out thus far. Now, if you did want to get a little bit more, you could get the Ultra Edition, which includes VIP Double XP Booster, 8 retro costumes, accessory sets, bonus retro color 7 for all Season 3 characters, and 18,000 Killer Instinct Gold, which I would say is a pretty good deal, and that is going to be 20 bucks more at $39.99 on both the Xbox One and Windows 10. Now, you could also get the Supreme Edition of the game, which includes every fighter from Seasons 1, 2, and 3, that is, every DLC fighter, all content from all 3 Ultra Editions, including costumes, accessories, 18,000 Killer Instinct Gold, VIP Double XP Boosters, bonus colors for Season 3 characters, Killer Instinct Classic, and Killer Instinct Classic 2 on Xbox One only. Now, that is the classic versions of these games are only going to be on the Xbox One console, which is why the Xbox One version of the Supreme Edition is $60 and the Windows 10 version of the Supreme Edition is $50. So depending on what platform you are on, you might not be able to play that classic version of Killer Instinct, but still they take a couple of bucks off the value of the Windows 10 10 version, so it does kind of even out in the long run. What it comes down to is that Killer Instinct has become one of the best fighting games on the Xbox One, even after its rough launch, and that is a rare thing to see. If a video game does have a rocky launch, it's not very often that you see it make a comeback to where it actually has favor in the eyes of the gamers, and that's something that Killer Instinct has done. The only other example that has been in recent years that I can think of is Battlefield 4, which had a terrible launch, but it did become one of the most successful Battlefield games of all time. But that's beside the point. Killer Instinct Season 3 hits the Xbox One and Windows 10 PCs this week. Next up, we have MLB The Show 16 coming to the PlayStation 4, and it is baseball. Next up, we have Resident Evil 6 coming to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which was kind of a shocking one to see, but I do remember the announcement in February when Capcom said that they were going to be bringing Resident Evils 4, 5, and 6 to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One over the course of 2016. Now, one is being released in the spring, which is the Resident Evil 6 release that we're seeing this week. Then in the summer, we're going to be getting Resident Evil 5, and then later in the fall, we're going to be seeing Resident Evil 4, which I would say is a pretty good release timeline because that gives gamers time to experience these games, and it also gives the developers a couple of extra weeks to really perfect the games. But of what I hear, especially on Resident Evil 6, since it is coming out this week, the games are running very well on both the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. In fact, unlike most ports, whenever you compare it to the PC version does tend to run a little bit smoother, maybe a little bit higher to frame rate, but that isn't the case here. Everything all the way across the board runs exactly the same at 1080p 60 frames a second, so that was a pretty good surprise to get whenever I was reading up on Resident Evil 6 on the consoles. But if you were a fan of Resident Evil, you will probably know that Resident Evil 6 was not the best received title that Resident Evil ever had in the franchise. However, if you were interested in playing it just to keep up with the series, you could definitely pick this one up this week on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. So there you guys have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, drop me a like down below and comment and tell me what games you are picking up this week, if anything. Are you a huge fan of Resident Evil? Have you really been looking forward to Adr1ft? Do you have an Oculus Rift? Or perhaps you really are into MLB 16 The Show, unlike myself. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And if you are new to the channel or you've never seen any of my other content, I do upload new stuff like 3 or 4 days a week depending on the week, so there's always something new right here on the channel when you drop by to watch some videos. And I do stream live on twitch.tv/PrettyShowGuy311 every single Saturday night around 8:30, 9 o'clock, depending on whenever I sit down. But that's all beside the point. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching this particular video right now. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.